Okay, so I'm going to add another button on here. Okay, this one, I'm just creating a new button called Resize Array. Okay, just going to put it next to the example we did with the array reference. Okay, so make sure you name that, and then we're just going to go into the code inside there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do inside this code is to create an array, and it's going to put a bunch of values in it. Now, there's two ways I can do that when I'm doing testing. If you recall from last year, one of the ways is you can use the equal sign and then use curly brackets, and it'll automatically create an array of how many elements you have in there. Now, you'd only use that method for like testing out. You can't like read in a file and use that particular format. The other way is to use the new keyword, and when you do that, you'll have to initialize every single element value, right? You have to go to index 0 and set it equal to. So in order to save time in doing that, I don't want to have to do that. So I'll just do something like let's say int. I'm going to call it originarray. So original. Let's just call it original. Oops, maybe I should. And then that's going to equal, and then I'm just going to do 1. I'll just do all these even odd numbers, 7, 9, like that. Okay, so what this statement does is it takes the new keyword, it puts it in kind of in the code, and it assigns index 0 to 1, index 1 to 3, so forth. Oh yeah. Okay, so that's just a short form. Again, the only way you would do this is if you're just testing it out to save time, so you don't have to manually enter in all the values, right? So if I look at my other code, I have to manually. So instead of doing it this way, right? This is another way of doing it. Okay. So this creates a location in memory and everything. So if I click it, run it, bang, it's all good. Okay? Now, if I want to resize, so the thing we're going to do is, I'm going to put a little, let me see here. So we're going to resize array by taking out one element. So one of these elements we have to take out. Okay? Which element is that going to be? Well, we're going to create a variable that specifies which element or what index it is that I want to delete. That's all. We'll do that maybe a little bit later on. But in order to resize an array by taking out one element, I have to create a copy of the original because I don't want to lose it. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an integer array, and I'm going to call it temp. And that's going to equal new int, and it has to be the same size as the original because I got to make a copy, right? So let's do original. Best way to do it is get the size of original.length. Perfect. Let me just take this comment, put it up at the top. I think that's where I should put it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is put a little comment here, say temp array to copy original. Okay. Oh my skin. There we go. Okay, so I have my original array with all these values in. I just wrote it in shorthand. And then my temporary array, which is going to be really a copy of original, right? So next thing I have to do is I actually have to copy over every single value from original into temporary, right? Because if I do this, if I just say temp equals original, these two are just going to be pointing to the same location. No good. No good. Same location. Okay, so no good. Don't do that. Okay? So what we're going to have to do is do a for loop to copy array. Okay? So you're going to do for int I equals 0 to I less than original, dot length, I plus plus, and we got that set up while you guys type that in here. Okay, so we're going to loop from first index to the last index, and then we're just going to copy every single index over. That will work. Okay, those aren't, remember, they're primitive data types, so it's perfect. Okay, it's going to actually create a copy from that one location in memory and copy it into the other. Okay, so you're going to do temp, like we said yesterday, I is going to equal original I. Okay? Because those are primitive data types, they're going to copy the actual value over. Because original I is not an array anymore. It's just one of the values inside the array. So I have a value now, right? So perfect. When I use the equal sign, it will copy it over. Okay? It won't point to it. Yep. Because this is a short form to doing it. So that's another way of doing it. Because I didn't want to type it in like I did up here. I'll show you. It's the same thing. You would only do this if you're just doing a test like I am. Okay? It's good to use so then you don't have to go ahead and type in all these values. It's the same thing as doing that. That was something I showed last year just to save time when you're testing things out with arrays or whatever. You can write it like this. So I'm showing both ways. So the other example, I did it that way. This example, do it this way. But you would never really do it this way in a program because you would usually get your values from inputs, and you can't do it this way by getting values from inputs. You can't put variables in there. It doesn't take variables. So it's only if you're really testing. And it's good to know what it means, though. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this. I'm going to put a break. So here's my beginning method, curly bracket, and here's the right here is the ending curly. If I put a breakpoint right there, whoops, right at the end, this will run, and then I could put my cursor over temp, and I want to make sure that it copied all the values over. Okay, so you can test it out. My suggestion to you folks this year is to always test out as you're going along. Write a little bit of code, test it out, make sure at least up to that point it's working, because then you know where it was working. So let's say you have to write a lot of code to do something, right, which you're going to get into more longer code now. You know that what is correct up to a certain point, right? So if I got to write 1,000 lines of code, I know that up to 900 was working great. So this problem I have must be in that last 100 lines of code. So it helps you with your figuring out where your problems are, right? So now I'm going to run this to see how it's going. Go right here. Put my mouse over temp. It's got 5. It's got 1, 3. It's all in there. Good. And there's my original. It's untouched. Okay? So far, so good. Once I copy my array from my original into a temporary, now I can resize my original. Because I want to keep that same variable name. Right? So what I'm going to do is, to do that, you're not going to do this. Don't type this in. But if I try to do this, whatever. What do I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got. Let's say I want to do 4. You're gonna get an error, okay? Because original, I already declared it, okay? So what you do is, if you want to resize an array that already exists, you don't put the data type in front. You do that like that, okay? So I would do original.length -1 -1, because I'm resizing to 1. Oh no, wait, what did I say? I'm gonna take out 1 element, right? Once this runs, now original is going to point to a new location in memory, and that original is gone. We don't have a reference to it anymore. I'm not pointing to that original chunk of data anymore, right? And I don't have to worry about it being gone because I had copied it into temp already, so I'm all good, right? I'm all good now. I'm all good because temp has all those values. My original array is gone now. My garbage collector is going to go pick it up and clean it up whenever it has a chance. So I can't trust the data that's in there. Okay? And now I have my original with all its default. It's 1 less. Okay? And then what I have to do is I have to copy over whatever I need to from temp. And I don't copy over one of the elements, which is the one I want to delete. Right? So I'm really resizing the array. I'm really deleting one of the elements, right? So I'm just going to do int, and I'm going to do delete index, and I'm going to say, I don't know, which index should we use? 2, index 2. So I'm simulating. I'm assuming that many of you guys had, if you write a full robust program where you want the person pick which one they wanted to, like on screen, and then when they selected which one they wanted to delete, they would give you the information that it's index 2. And then when you say save, if you want to delete it, you know that it's index 2. So here I'm simulating that. That's what I meant yesterday. Maybe some of you got confused by that. But here is where your user interface would have to pick up where it is. I don't want you fussing with that right now, because we're just thinking about how does this resize work. But before I go on, I just want to make sure. Does that make sense, what I mean? So I'm simulating someone going in the user interface, and maybe they have a list showing all the values, and they want to delete one of them. Maybe there's a whole bunch of test marks. Let's say the person had like 10 marks in there, and they wanted to delete, well, this would be, if it's index, it would be the 3rd one. So it's on this list, whatever it's shown on the graphic interface, they clicked it, and say, I want to, and they hit delete. Right? So when you hit that button delete, it would run through this code, and it would know that you picked up that index. Okay? It would know it's the 3rd one, which is really the 2nd index. Okay? Don't worry about how that works. Okay? Don't worry about that right now. So that's the index that I want to remove, which is the 3rd one or the 2nd index. 3rd element or 2nd index, right? 1 less. So then now we're going to copy over temp to original without delete index value. So we're just going to run the for loop again. Okay, so we're just going to run the for loop again. So I'm going to copy it. You could copy this one up here. And I'm just going to modify it. So I'm going to say if I is not equal to delete index, then temp I is going to, is that right? Think that's going to work? So if I is not equal to the value of the delete, so if I is not equal to 2, it's just going to copy over. And when it hits 2, it's just not going to run this part. It's going to skip over it, and then it'll go on to the next one. You think that'll work? I guess let's try it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We got to try it and see what the values are. So what I'm going to do, I mean, I could write some code to print out, but yeah, maybe we'll do that. Now the code to print it on the, I have it up here. You know what, I'll just stop it and I'll put that in after. Or I'll get you guys to do it. So if I run this and then I hit resize, then we'll look at the code again. So it should say, what should my answer be? It should say 1379. Is that right? Because I'm skipping over index 2. This 0, 1, 2. So I'm skipping over the 5. So it should say 1379. Oh, no. I screwed up. It's the other way around. It's original. Right? So that's definitely, right? We're copying back into original from the temp. Because I remember I copied and pasted the code, so it's the other way around this time. Okay, now it should work, maybe. So original, see, has 4. Temp has 5. So when I look at it, 13579. Original, let's cross our fingers. 13, uh-oh, 07. What's going on here? 1307. What did I do wrong? What's going on? Should we step through it? Let's take a look. See what's going on. I got a problem, don't I? Anyone figure out what's going on? Let's take a look. Can I just do it this way? Okay, so let me just run it to that point. So I is 0. It's not equal to delete index. So it's going to go ahead, copies over. Now another thing you can do. No, it's okay. So right now I got the 1 in there. I copied the 1 over, right? The 1 and the 1 got copied over. I'm going to run it again. I is 1. Delete index is 2. So it's going to copy the second index over, right? Okay. The 3 came over, right? That's good. It's going to come over here. Oh, it's 2 and it's 2. I don't want to copy that one over, right? So we gotta skip over that one. Okay, that's gone. But wait a second. Because original, wait a second here. I is 3. But wait a second, I already went to I is 3, so it's not equal to that index, right? Okay, let's just go. And it's going to copy over the third one into the third one here. But my third one on temp has to be the second one over here, does it not? Okay, let's take a look on the board. You know what, I'll do it on here because I'm recording it. Let's take a look. Watch. So I'll show you where the bug is. Now you're going to take a little bit of time. You're going to figure it out and fix it. Okay? So let's just draw the 2 arrays. So 10. Oh. Okay, so 10, and then temp has this. 1, 3, 5, 7. Did I go up to 9? Yeah, 9, right? Index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? My original, so we have one less spot. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? So this is the one I want to delete, this one, correct? Okay? So this has to come into here to be 1, right? This one maps to 0. This one maps here to 3, right? So far, that worked on our program, right? We skip over this one, but this one here, 7, which is index 3, oh, this is off, sorry guys. All of a sudden, this thing went crazy. Okay. See that? Doesn't like my computer sometimes. Holy smokes. It went down there. Okay? So now this over here, there we go. This has to be 7, and then this one here has to be 9. Notice that before the deleted index, they mapped out the same. It's before 2. Greater than 2, I'm off by 1. See the pattern there? Less than the index that I want to delete, they mapped out exactly the same. Greater than the index, we're off by 1. Right? The original deletes, the original index, so the index is going to be 1 higher than the other one. You have to copy it in 1 less. Right? So what I want you to do is come up with the code to take care of how you would handle before. I'm giving you hints. You listen to me carefully. Before the index 2, you have to have a certain bit of code that'll map it straight on. After 2, you have to take care of it this way so that this one matches up with this index. The 4 index matches up with that one. So an if and an else if I think would work, would it not? Okay. Okay. So think of how you would do that. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. So if you're less than the delete index, guess what? You can copy them straight off. Else if, that means you're greater than, else if you're greater than the delete index, you're going to map it from, well, the temp index I and the original are going to be off by 1. You have to think of how that's going to map up. Okay? So a little bit of an array manipulation there. See if you can come up with it. So you can have an if and an else if for sure inside. Okay, so take a few moments. See if you can do that if, else, if. Because the other way didn't work, did it? Okay, so here's the solution. Let's go back and look at this. You should take this and you write the pseudocode for it. You got to think of how you're going to do this. So if you look over here, okay, so this is the index that's in question over here. So if, as I'm looping, I'm looping through I, right? So if I is less than the delete index, okay. So here and here it's less than this, right? All you're going to do is I'm going to copy this element to this one. The indexes are the same, so it's a straight up conversion. So what would be my code between original and 10? The index value's got to match up, so it has to be what? Same. So what would the code be? I want you to tell me what the code would be. If I'm copying from here to here, these indexes are the same, so it's what? Original what equals temp what? So original I equals temp what? Sorry? No, they're the same. So they have to both be what? I. When I is 0, it's going to be original 0. It's going to equal this temp 0. And then it's going to, the lead index is still going to be less than 2 when it becomes 1. And then it's going to be 3. Original 0. Original 1 is going to equal temp 1. Well, then the 3 will get copied into there. So those two are done. Right? Else, if I is going to be greater than, I is on this side here. So when I is greater than the delete index. Now I'm not even going to do else if I equals the delete index, because if it equals the delete index, it doesn't matter. I'm just skipping over it. I don't do anything. Because when I copy it over, I don't want to do anything at that point. So when it hits the delete index of 2, that doesn't get copied over, so I don't even write any code for it. Nor do I even have to handle it because I'm skipping over it, right? So all I have to do is take into consideration, these index values and those index values. The one at 2 I could ignore completely. So then when I do this, else if original so I is going to come at 0, at 1, at 2, 3. Okay, so what's going to happen here? When I'm looping through, okay, in this part right here, you got to keep track of I is going to equal 0 and 1. We skip 2. We skip I equals 2, because I'm not going to handle it. So when it comes into this part here, I has to be what values? I can only be what values? When I come into this part here, I has to be greater than delete index. My delete index is what? 2, so I has to be what? 3 or, so when it comes in here, it's going to be 3 or 4. Over here, it's going to be 0 or 1. The 2 gets skipped over. Over here, it's 3 or 4. So the first one that's going to come in, obviously we're going in order of I, so it's going to be 3. So I is going to be 3. So if temp is 3, what does original have to be? What index value? 2. Okay? So this is going to be what then? And this is going to be what? If this has to be 3, this has to be 2, this represents I, what does that have to be? How am I going to get 2? If I is 3, how do I get 2? What do I do? Yeah. I minus 1, I. When it's 4, then the next time I loop, it's going to be 4, right? So I is going to be 4, so I'm going to copy temp. I'm going to copy the value from temp I, which is 4, into original 3. Because this one's 1 less, right? So now, I minus 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. It'll work. So this is what you need to put in. That's what you need to put in as your inside that if statement. But make sure your if statement goes from I equals to I less than the temp dot length. I think we did original dot length. If you do original dot length, we're going to go 1 less. So you have to go from the length of temp. Because you have to go through every value of temp. I got to loop through every value of here because I'm copying from here into this one. This is 1 less. Okay? So if you start to really think about what we just did right here, we copied all the values. So depending on which one I want to delete, up to the value I want to delete, it's a straight off copy. Right? I skip over, because I just now skipped over the index that I want to delete, every other index is just off by 1. So I have to, that's why I have to put the if and the else if. Here, straight off copy. Here, I have to skip over this one, so my index values between my temp and my original are off by 1. Okay? It's very important that we can manipulate arrays in this particular manner. When we can go for 1, we can do this. When we get to the pictures and we have a 2-dimensional array, we're going to be rotating things, moving things around. You have to know where everything goes. You have to start thinking inside your head what goes to what. So my recommendation to you is this. You should always have some pad of paper with you because you have to think of what's going on inside here. You telling me that you can think of this inside your head without writing down and keep track of what's going on a little bit and draw a couple little diagrams and see what's going on, it's going to get very, very difficult to keep all that inside your head. I cannot. Right? When I do that, I have to kind of write some things down. Right? So it's very useful for you to start thinking about what's going on. You have to know what's going on the screen. You have to keep track of all the variables inside your head. Well, you can't do it inside your head. You're going to have to write it down. This is going to get too complex, particularly when you're going to do, more things. And the best thing to do, or there's more logic to think about. And then we have to test to make sure. Well, once we do this, we got to test to make sure all the index values. I got to test out each individual index, all the way from 0 to, and the temp to 4. I have to test them all out. So if I'm deleting the very first index, is it going to work? Does it skip over the first and copy over the rest properly? Got to test that out. Okay. I got to test out if I delete this index 1, does it work? So you test them all out, make sure that it works. Okay. Well, really, what you have to do, you check the first one out, the last one out, and one of the ones in between. Because any of the ones in between should work. Because if your array was like a million records, you can't test them out a million times. I would make sure that the last one, if I delete the last one, everything gets copied over except for the last one. If I delete the first one, make sure that the first one's not in my result and all the other ones are. And then if I pick any random ones in between, make sure that those don't show up. So you can run 3 separate tests to make sure that this is working properly. And then you should feel pretty confident that, yeah, my code's doing this correctly. Now I can move on and release this to whatever, or include it in my project. Okay? So your code would look something like this. I want you to write it, so I'm going to give you a few more minutes. Okay? You got to make sure you change this here. I think when we wrote the original code, we wrote original.length. If I did that, I'm going to leave out the very last value every time. So my last value is always going to be 0. So it's going to be wrong. I have to go, like I said, I'm looping through all the values in temp, because those are the ones I'm copying from. So I made a mistake, right? But I caught it when I was testing it. And then I put the code that we just had on the board right here. Okay? So you got like 5 minutes. You should be able to enter that code in. But I don't want to leave the code like this. I'd rather you look at it like this. Because now you type it in. Because now you're not just sitting there just typing in what I typed in, right? You're typing in, you're thinking a little bit, which is pretty much the code anyways. Okay? So make sure you got that for loop changed and test it out. Change your delete index to 0, change it to 4, sorry. Change it to 4. Test it out, change it to 0, change it to 4, and I don't know, pick one of the other ones. Make sure it works, and then you know it's good. Deleted one value, right? So you should have a for loop that does it. Right? That means this line instead of our code in it. Somebody want to bring your pens down?